I saw Pep Guardiola's fury at Man City player, it might cost him his place in the team. Jeremy Doku started for Manchester City against Wolves, but may not keep his place against Southampton next week. 2 weeks is a long time in football. Since Manchester City beat Fulham earlier this month, they have won a massive legal battle against the Premier League, announced the departure of their influential sporting director, announced his replacement, and seen Pep Guardiola linked with an England job that then went to Thomas Tuchel. Football was thankfully back on the menu at Molineux as City faced Wolves, and Guardiola went for his chaos approach over control. This season he can field starting lineups which lean heavily in either direction or with a mix of both depending on the opposition. When Guardiola selects Jeremy Doku and Savigno, he's going for the chaos option with 2 direct wingers able to switch flanks, take on their man, and send crosses in. That was the plan against Wolves, with Doku on the left and Savigno dangerous on the right. Of the two, it was Savigno who had more joy, tempting 2 first-half bookings and creating some good chances. He was unlucky not to score before the break, too. The alternative is Jack Grealish on one flank and probably Bernardo Silva on the other, or maybe Phil Foden inverting inside as a dual number 10. Both Grealish and Foden were dropped to the bench at Molineux. Doku got an assist, but was much quieter, and his stunning effort against Fulham has long been forgotten. In that game, he came inside off the left and unleashed a dipping, curling effort over the goalkeeper to win the game. He described it as maybe the most beautiful goal he had scored, even if he preferred ones where he takes on his man, although he was clearly trying to replicate the goal against Wolves. But he couldn't, and an early shot that flew high and wide into the Jack Hayward stand should have been the signal not to try again. In the second half, however, a corner fell invitingly to him and he couldn't resist another aim at the far corner. Once again, the ball went high and wide, and Guardiola couldn't hide his fury. The manager threw his arms wide, stomped back to his seat, and looked in disbelief at the wastefulness as he sat down, still stewing for a few minutes. When Guardiola got back up, he gestured for Foden to get ready, and it was no surprise to see Doku's number up. Doku was spared a frosty exchange by going off on the opposite side and walking round when replaced, but there was no gesture from Guardiola or pat on the back. He hadn't played poorly, but equally hadn't done much to influence the attack, and his assist for Guardiola was simply a pass inside to the fullback on the edge of the area. It was hardly incisive. As Foden replaced Doku, Grealish soon came on for Savigno as Guardiola looked for a winner. As the manager wrestles with his wingers, each one knows they are only one passive performance away from the bench, even if they played well the week before. Doku may learn that the hard way. Control came on top over chaos on Sunday, maybe a mix of the two is the way forward. New focus, the significant Man City training change that has had an instant impact. Manchester City were made to work hard for their 3 points against Wolves, but scored an injury-time winner. If you don't succeed, try again. And again. And another 16 times if you have to. John Stones scored the winning goal at Wolves from Manchester City's 18th corner of the game, and they forced several in a row at the end of the contest before their persistence finally paid off. Pep Guardiola celebrated wildly once the goal had been confirmed, as set-piece coach Carlos Vicens could also afford to be pleased. City have been reeled back in on the set-piece front after a record-breaking season a few years ago, with Arsenal among those stepping up and showing at the Etihad this season just how dangerous they can be. The Blues put in work in the middle of last season, though that paid instant dividends, and while they scored for fewer than the Gunners in the league, they also conceded for fewer to give them the joint best record. Stones scored City's third set-piece goal of this campaign at Molineux on Sunday. Only 4 clubs have managed more, and spoke afterwards about the work that has gone into them at the training ground that has brought a new focus. It may have taken time to do it, but Phil Foden's delivery was perfect for Stones to make the difference. We have been trying super hard to improve our set pieces and make the most of them. Today was a new focus and attitude towards them, the defender said afterwards. Hopefully this is the start of many more. It is a vital part of the game at both ends of the pitch, and really pleasing for me personally to get the winner after such a difficult game. I thought it had been chalked off. I tried to speak to the ref, but he had a lot of people around him. For me it is the right call. Obviously I am going to be biased, but I think it should stand. I saw what Man City players really thought of Arsenal title twist as they left Wolves amid VAR drama. Manchester City took a big step ahead of rivals Arsenal in the early stages of the Premier League title race as they beat Wolves with a late winner. The celebrations at Molineux were jubilant. Twice Manchester City's bench had spilled onto the pitch, celebrating John Stones' 95th minute winner, and then its confirmation following a VAR review. At full time, the City players who had been defending a last-gasp Wolves attack celebrated in a huddle in their own box. There were hugs. Pep Guardiola went around the whole team, and they took in the adoration from their fans. Out of context, you may have thought the win had secured silverware or qualification of some sort. But even before the players were back in the dressing room, the celebrations were over. Guardiola pulled Bernardo Silva for one of his famous on-field coaching sessions, which didn't seem to please the Portuguese, and the mood in the tunnel was one of business as usual. After the managers delivered their post-match thoughts and the TV interviews were concluded, the Portuguese-speaking contingent of City and Wolves gathered outside the away dressing room. On Sunday, there were 15 Portuguese or Brazilian players in the squads, with most of them gathering to dissect the game. Wolves were understandably frustrated with the manner of Stones' winner, initially ruled out for offside against Bernardo Silva before being given after an on-field VAR review. But it seemed like both sets of players were philosophical about the decision, not least because it was probably the correct one. One home player was heard remarking that these kind of things always happen to us when leaving Molineux with a City player. Jack Grealish told reporters, "Wolves are a top team by the way, I don't know how they're bottom of the league. From what I've seen they've been really good this season and just unlucky." Unluckier probably sums up their afternoon. By the time the dust had settled, the goal wasn't as contentious as the post-match analysis would have you believe. Even Gary O'Neill refused to blame the decision on their defeat, instead asking why Stones was free at a corner at that stage of the game. There was another theme in the post-match debriefs. City had just taken a 3-point lead over Arsenal after the Gunners fell to a surprise defeat at Bournemouth the day before.